I never thought money could make people so ugly. When my grandmother Evelyn passed away last year, I expected sadness, maybe some nostalgia, maybe a few awkward family gatherings, but not this. Not my own brother turning into someone I barely recognized. Grandma was the heart of our family. She was old school, the kind of woman who always smelled like lavender, kept hard candies in her purse, and wrote letters in cursive so perfect it could have been on greeting cards. When Mom died young, it was Grandma who raised me and my brother, Jacob. She loved us both, but if I'm honest, she and I were closer. Jacob left home as soon as he turned 18. He was ambitious, loud, always wanted the big life. Cars, parties, expensive watches he couldn't afford. I stayed behind, helped Grandma around the house, drove her to doctor's appointments, and kept the garden she loved alive. She used to call me her old soul. When she passed, the will reading was set for 2 weeks later. That's when the storm started brewing. Jacob called me the night before the reading. His voice was already tense. "Hey, just so we're clear," he said, "I know Grandma had some money tucked away. You and I are splitting it 50-50. I was stunned. "Jacob, we don't even know what she left. And it's not about—" "Oh, cut the crap," he interrupted. "You lived with her for years. Don't act like she didn't promise you anything. You probably manipulated her into leaving everything to you, huh?" That hit harder than I expected. Manipulated her? I'd given up my 20s to take care of that woman. Not out of greed, but because I loved her. "Jacob," I said quietly, "this isn't the time." But it was too late. He hung up. The next day, the lawyer's office felt like a church before a funeral. Silent, cold, with tension so thick it hurt to breathe. Jacob walked in wearing sunglasses indoors, chewing gum like he was auditioning for a gangster movie. His wife, a woman named Crystal, who never worked a day in her life but had nails worth a car payment, sat next to him. I sat alone. The lawyer, Mr. Burns, a slow, methodical man who looked like he hadn't blinked since 1983, opened a leather folder. "Mrs. Evelyn's last will and testament," he said. He began reading, "To my grandson Jacob, I leave my love and the memories of our time together." Jacob straightened up, smirking. "To my granddaughter, Anna," he continued, "I leave my home, its contents, and my remaining savings totaling—" He paused. $248,000. Jacob's smirk vanished. He slammed his hand on the table. "This is bullshit. She wouldn't do that. She told me once she wanted me to have the car, the—" "Mr. Walker," the lawyer interrupted sharply, "there's more." Jacob froze. Mr. Burns reached into his folder and pulled out a smaller, cream-colored envelope, sealed with red wax. "This," he said, "was to be opened only after the main will had been read. It's addressed to both of you." My heart started racing. Jacob leaned forward, still fuming. The lawyer broke the seal. Inside were 2 handwritten letters, one for me, one for Jacob. He handed them to us. Jacob tore his open without hesitation. I unfolded mine carefully. It read, "My dear Anna, if you're reading this, I've already gone where the pain can't reach me anymore. Don't cry for me, my sweet girl. You gave me joy every single day. You taught me that kindness doesn't fade with age. Take care of my garden, and remember that love is the real inheritance. The money, it's just paper. What you gave me was worth more. With love, Grandma." I blinked back tears. Then I heard Jacob whisper, "What the hell?" I looked up. His face had gone pale. "What?" I asked. He didn't answer. He just stared at the paper like it was burning his hands. Mr. Burns frowned. "Is something wrong, Mr. Walker?" Jacob swallowed hard, crumpled the letter, and suddenly stood up. "This is insane!" he barked, storming toward the door. But before he could reach it, Mr. Burns spoke again, slowly, carefully. "Mr. Walker, there's a second note inside the same envelope. You haven't read it." Jacob froze mid-step. "What?" The lawyer reached into the envelope again and pulled out a smaller folded card, one that Jacob must have missed. "This," Mr. Burns said, "was handwritten separately and addressed specifically to you." He slid it across the table. Jacob hesitated, his hand trembling slightly, then grabbed the note and unfolded it. I'll never forget the look on his face. The color drained from him completely, white as paper. He staggered back a step, eyes wide. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. "What?" I asked again, alarmed. Jacob didn't respond. His hands shook, and then, I swear to God, he fainted. Right there in the lawyer's office. Mr. Burns and I both jumped up, startled. His wife screamed. The letter fluttered out of his hand and landed face up on the table, and that's when I saw it. The beginning of the message, written in Grandma's perfect cursive. "Jacob, if you're reading this, then I know you came for money. So, let's talk about the money you think I didn't know about. Jacob, if you're reading this, then I know you came for money. So, let's talk about the money you think I didn't know about." My pulse started pounding. Jacob was still out cold, sprawled half off the leather chair, while Crystal knelt beside him, fanning his face with her designer purse. The lawyer looked horrified, but also curious. He cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should—" "Just wait," I interrupted, staring at the letter on the table. Burns hesitated, then adjusted his glasses. "Miss Walker, I'm afraid this note is private." "Not anymore," I said quietly. "He already fainted." He gave me a long look, then sighed and nodded. Together, we read the rest of the letter aloud. "Jacob, do you remember when I trusted you to help me sell some old furniture? You insisted on handling the money because you said I shouldn't deal with online banking. You thought I wouldn't find out that you sold those antiques for $10,000 and kept it all. But I did. I forgave you because you were my grandson. But I never forgot. You also borrowed money from Anna's college fund, told her I'd approved it, and never paid her back. I know you thought it was harmless. You told yourself, I'll fix it later. But later never came. So before you ask for half of what's left, I want you to know this. I already gave you more than your half. Years ago, when I kept forgiving you. But forgiveness and foolishness are not the same. So, my dear Jacob, if you're reading this, I've arranged something special for you in the safety deposit box under your name at Brighton Bank. It's all yours, and no one can touch it but you." "Grandma?" The room went dead silent. Mr. Burns blinked. Deposit box?" Crystal's head shot up. "Wait, so she did leave him something?" "Apparently," he murmured. "And since it's under his name, it's legally his." Jacob groaned and slowly came to. He looked dazed, like someone who'd just seen a ghost. What happened?" "You fainted," I said flatly. "And Grandma left you something, a safety deposit box." At the mention of it, his eyes lit up instantly. She did? Where?" "Brighton Bank," I said. "Under your name." He stumbled to his feet, still shaky but suddenly full of energy. "We have to go there, now." Mr. Burns tried to calm him. "Mr. Walker, perhaps you should—" But Jacob was already grabbing his keys. "No, she knew. She felt guilty. That's why she left me something extra." He stormed out. Crystal followed, looking like she'd just hit the jackpot. I sat there in stunned silence, still clutching my letter. Mr. Burns gave me a sympathetic smile. "Mrs. Evelyn was quite a remarkable woman. She planned this very carefully." I nodded, still processing everything. "Yeah, she always did." 2 hours later, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Jacob. Just one sentence. "You're not funny." That was weird. Then another text came through, this one full of typos. "What the hell is this? She left me nothing but shame. You knew, didn't you?" I frowned. Then a picture came through. It was of a letter, on the same cream paper Grandma always used. It read, "Jacob, by now you've opened this box expecting money. There isn't any. Instead, you'll find every IOU, every lie, every note you left me over the years when you borrowed from family. I kept them all, not to shame you, but to remind you that debts don't just disappear when you pretend they didn't happen. Use this as your real inheritance, a chance to start over clean. Pay back what you owe, and maybe you'll learn what wealth truly means. Love, Grandma." I exhaled sharply, half in disbelief, half in admiration. It was so her. Jacob must have found the stack of papers. Every scribbled note where he'd promised to repay Grandma soon, or the checks he'd bounced. She had kept receipts, notes, even an old sticky note that said, I'll pay you when I can, promise. He sent one last message. She humiliated me. And then, nothing. Over the next few days, I tried to reach him, but he didn't answer. Crystal posted a few cryptic things online about fake families and betrayal, then deleted her accounts. Meanwhile, I started moving into Grandma's house. It felt empty without her, but peaceful too. The garden was overgrown, the roses drooping. Yet, when I touched the soil, it still felt alive. While cleaning out the attic, I found something that stopped me in my tracks, a small tin box labeled simply, "For when the storm passes." Inside were dozens of little notes, all for me. Remember to water the hydrangeas. Don't let Jacob's choices harden your heart. If you ever doubt yourself, look at what you built, not what they broke. And tucked at the bottom, another envelope. This one addressed to the lawyer. Curious, I called Mr. Burns and told him I'd found something. He came the next morning, looking intrigued. When he opened the envelope, his eyebrows shot up. Inside was a short typed note and a check. For services to be rendered after I'm gone, please deliver one final message when both my grandchildren have heard their letters. Mr. Burns looked at me. There's another envelope, he said slowly. It's in my office safe. I was told to open it only after receiving this one. My heart pounded again. Another envelope? He smiled faintly. Shall we? Back at his office, he pulled a thick sealed envelope from his drawer. The handwriting on the front was unmistakably Grandma's. He slid it open carefully, took a deep breath, and began to read aloud. To my grandchildren, if you are hearing this, then you have both seen who you are without my presence to guide you. Anna, my heart. You've always given more than you've taken. Your kindness will be tested, but don't let your brother's bitterness define your love. Jacob, I know you're angry right now, but I never wrote these letters to punish you. I wrote them to wake you up. Life isn't about what you're owed. It's about what you give when no one is watching. There's one more thing you both need to know. Something I never told anyone. Mr. Burns looked up, eyes wide. There's more, he said, voice trembling slightly. He flipped the page, and whatever came next made his jaw drop open. I leaned forward. What is it? He didn't answer right away. His face went pale. Dear God, he whispered. Then he looked at me, stunned. Anna, he said slowly, your grandmother wasn't just sitting on savings. She was... Anna, the lawyer repeated, still staring at the page. Your grandmother wasn't just sitting on savings. She was a shareholder. I blinked. A what? Mr. Burns swallowed. She owned stock, a lot of stock, in a company called Brightline Therapeutics. It's a pharmaceutical research firm. I didn't realize how much until this letter. I frowned, trying to process it. Grandma never talked about stocks. She used to clip grocery coupons and complain about gas prices. She mentions it right here, he said, scanning the paper again. She invested 30 years ago when the company was nothing. They've just been acquired by a major health conglomerate. He paused. According to this, her shares are now worth roughly $7.6 million. I felt my knees weaken. Million? Mr. Burns nodded, voice trembling slightly. Yes, and she left clear instructions. He read on. Anna, you have proven through your actions that you value people over profit. That's why the shares are in your name, but they're not just for you. Half of the profit will go to establishing a community scholarship fund in our town, the Evelyn Walker Foundation. The other half is yours to do with, as you see fit. Jacob must not know about this until he learns what generosity truly means. That's why you, Mr. Burns, will tell him nothing. If he asks, tell him there was no second inheritance. And if he threatens, remind him, secrets are safest in the hands of the patient. Mr. Burns exhaled shakily and sank back in his chair. I had no idea. My hands trembled as I covered my mouth. Grandma, the woman who wore the same coat for 10 winters, was secretly worth millions, and she'd hidden it behind kindness and quiet humility. It all made sense now. The calmness she had those last few months. The knowing smiles when Jacob bragged about his future millions. She'd been planning all this. A week later, I found myself sitting in Grandma's old garden, letter in hand, staring at the dying sunflowers. The world felt heavier and lighter at the same time. Jacob hadn't spoken to me since that text. I didn't even know if he was still in town, but part of me hoped he'd read his letter again, and maybe someday understand. Then, late one night, I heard a car pull up outside the house. Headlights swept across the living room. I opened the door. Jacob stood there, alone. He looked rough, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes. There was no swagger left. "Hey," he muttered. I hesitated, then stepped aside. "Come in." He walked in slowly, looking around like the house was haunted. Maybe, in a way, it was. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then he finally said, "You knew about the second envelope, didn't you?" I shook my head. "I didn't know anything. She planned this herself." He let out a bitter laugh. "Yeah, of course she did." He sat down at the table, the same one where Grandma used to serve tea. His eyes were glassy. "You know what was in that deposit box? A bunch of notes and receipts. One of them was from when I was 16. She lent me $20 so I could go to prom. She kept that." I smiled softly. "She kept everything. Not out of spite. Because you mattered." He didn't answer right away, just rubbed his face and sighed. "I've been such an idiot." For the first time, his voice wasn't defensive. It was tired, real. "I thought she owed me," he said quietly. "After Mom died, I just felt like the world owed me something. But she didn't owe me anything, did she?" "No," I said gently. "She gave us everything she could." He nodded slowly. His eyes filled with tears, but he blinked them away. After a long silence, he whispered, "She left you everything, didn't she?" I didn't lie. "Yes." He exhaled. "Then I guess she made the right choice." Those words hit me harder than anything else he'd said. Over the next few weeks, something changed between us. He started coming around more, helping me clean up the house, mowing the lawn, fixing the squeaky door. He didn't mention money again, not once. Then one afternoon, while we were sorting through Grandma's old things, he found a box full of photo albums. He opened one, smiled faintly, and said, "Remember this?" It was a picture of us as kids, covered in mud, Grandma in the background laughing. We both laughed too, quietly, like it hurt a little. That's when I realized something. Maybe this was his inheritance after all, the second chance she wanted him to have. A few months later, Mr. Burns called again. "Anna," he said, "there's one last document I think you should see. Your grandmother's handwritten addendum. I missed it the first time. It's sealed, but it's addressed to both of you again." I met Jacob at the office. He looked nervous, but calm. When the lawyer opened the envelope, he read aloud, "If you two are reading this together, it means my plan worked, at least partly. I never cared about who got what. I cared about whether you could sit in the same room without poison in your hearts." That evening, we went to the old garden shed. The smell of soil and wood hit us as we stepped inside. Jacob looked around. "Okay, this is officially weird." Then he noticed a patch of fresh soil near the hydrangeas. "She actually buried something." We dug for a few minutes until the shovel hit something solid, a small metal box. Inside was a faded Polaroid of Grandma holding us as kids, both of us smiling with missing teeth. Underneath was a small envelope. We opened it together. "For the both of you, two halves of my heart. You've spent enough years fighting over pieces. Here's something whole. Use it together." Inside were two matching keys, identical in every way. Jacob frowned. "What do they open?" I looked closer and realized they were storage unit keys. A small label on each read, Unit 14B, Walker Family Memories. "You both are my legacy, not the money, but since you made it this far, there's one last gift waiting for you both in the garden shed. Bring a shovel and an open mind." We looked at each other, half confused, half smiling. That evening, we went to the old garden shed. The smell of soil and wood hit us as we stepped inside. Jacob looked around. "Okay, this is officially weird." Then he noticed a patch of fresh soil near the hydrangeas. "She actually buried something?" We dug for a few minutes until the shovel hit something solid, a small metal box. Inside was a faded Polaroid of Grandma holding us as kids, both of us smiling with missing teeth. Underneath was a small envelope. We opened it together. For the both of you, two halves of my heart. You've spent enough years fighting over pieces. Here's something whole. Use it together. Inside were two matching keys, identical in every way. Jacob frowned. What do they open? I looked closer and realized they were storage unit keys. A small label on each read, Unit 14B, Walker Family Memories. Jacob looked at me, half smiling. Guess we're not done yet? And for the first time in years, I smiled back. We didn't know what was inside that storage unit, but somehow it didn't matter. For once we were working together, and maybe that was Grandma's real inheritance all along. The next morning, we drove to the storage facility on the edge of town, a quiet, dusty place tucked behind a row of warehouses. The sun was barely up, painting everything gold and sleepy. Jacob parked the car and exhaled. You ready for this? I smiled faintly. As ready as I'll ever be. The manager led us down a long hallway lined with metal doors until we reached Unit 14B. The two keys in our hands fit perfectly into the twin locks. For a moment, we looked at each other. Then we turned them together. The locks clicked. When the door rolled up, a gust of cool air rushed out, carrying that faint smell of cedar and old paper. Inside wasn't what I expected. No money, no antiques, just memories. Rows of labeled boxes stacked neatly along the walls. Jacob, age 6. Anna, college years. Family trips. Mom. And in the middle of the floor, an old record player. On top of it sat a sealed envelope with a note. Play me. Jacob and I exchanged a look. I lifted the record's dust cover. There was already a vinyl on it. A plain black record labeled in Grandma's elegant handwriting. Final message. Jacob plugged it in, the old motor humming softly. The needle dropped, scratching faintly before her voice filled the room. Hello, my darlings. Her voice, warm, soft, it froze both of us in place. If you're hearing this, she said, then I suppose you've done all I asked. You found the letters, maybe even argued a little, cried a little. I hope you did both. She chuckled, that same tiny laugh I'd grown up hearing over tea and old TV shows. I wanted you to open this together. You see, I didn't just want to leave money. I wanted to leave you back to each other. I saw how time and pain made you drift apart. Anna, you gave and gave until there was nothing left for yourself. Jacob, you took and took until there was nothing left for others. But you're both halves of the same story. And I needed to remind you that stories only make sense when both sides are told. I felt tears streaming down my cheeks. Beside me, Jacob's shoulders shook, his hands covering his face. Grandma's voice softened. I don't want you to live in guilt or regret. I want you to live in gratitude. The money, the house, those are tools, not trophies. Use them to build something worth remembering, and if you ever feel lost, open the box marked home. The record crackled, then silence. We stood there for a long time, both crying quietly. Jacob finally wiped his face and said hoarsely, She really thought of everything, didn't she? Yeah, I whispered. She always did. Then I noticed a medium-sized wooden chest sitting against the far wall, labeled home. We carried it out into the sunlight and opened it. Inside were simple things, a recipe book with Grandma's handwriting in the margins, an old family Bible, a tin of buttons shaped like flowers, a folded quilt patched together from pieces of our childhood clothes. Jacob unfolded it and froze. This was from our old beds. I nodded, touching the faded fabric. Tiny dinosaurs, pink hearts, pieces of Mom's old dress. Beneath the quilt, there was one more item, a framed photo of all three of us, taken in the backyard years ago. Grandma had written on the back, no matter what happens, remember, you both were loved in full. Jacob broke down then, really broke. Not angry, not ashamed, just raw. He sank to his knees, clutching the quilt, sobbing into it like a child. I knelt beside him and put my arms around him. For the first time in years, he didn't pull away. We stayed like that for a while, brother and sister, holding on to the one thing we'd almost lost completely, each other. A month later, the Evelyn Walker Foundation launched. The town library held the first scholarship event. Jacob showed up in a clean shirt, looking nervous but proud. He helped set up the chairs, smiled for pictures, even handed out the first award to a local student. When the cameras turned off, he looked at me and said quietly, "I'm paying back every debt she listed. Every one." I nodded. That's what she'd want. He smiled faintly. "And maybe, after that, I'll plant something in her garden." "Hydrangeas?" I asked, smiling through the lump in my throat. He nodded. "Yeah, blue ones. She liked those." A year passed. The house felt different now. Not heavy, not lonely, just full. The garden bloomed brighter than ever. One evening, while watching the sunset from the porch, I opened my phone and found a voicemail. It was Jacob. "Hey," he said, voice lighter than I'd heard in years. "Guess what? I got a job offer at the community center. They're starting a youth mentorship program. Thought I'd, give something back." I smiled. "You already did." That night, I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, Grandma's old chipped mug, and the last of her letters, folded and worn from rereading. "Love is the only inheritance that grows when you give it away." I whispered it out loud, smiling through tears. Outside, the wind rustled through the hydrangeas, carrying the scent of home. And in that quiet moment, I realized something Grandma probably knew all along. Sometimes the richest families aren't the ones with the biggest bank accounts. They're the ones who finally find their way back to each other.